EA Games is back in the news for a wide variety of reasons, but the biggest one is definitely their remake of Dead Space. Now, EA is a very complicated beast. They did teach me one of life's greatest lessons, which is to challenge everything. However, they also have been going against their slogan from before, it's in the game. A lot of their features are not really in the game anymore, and that's something we wanted to talk about here is, has EA changed? And I don't mean have they changed to be worse, have they changed to be more focused on microtransactions and all that? We know they have, but are they turning a corner where they now value single player games again? Fallen Order and now this, what is the common denominator? And I've heard a lot of people say they think EA has changed. I personally don't really agree.
I think that's kind of naive when you think about it because a lot of the people who think that sort of thing are people who aren't necessarily business people and are people who have good hearts and don't necessarily think that everything that somebody is feeding them has an ulterior motive to it. But EA is a business, and every single thing that they say and put out has an ulterior motive to it. And the reason that they're doing things like this is to pad out EA play.
Right, and that's something we're going to talk about here. We really do believe that this focus is actually more on more live service than you think. We're going to talk about that here, but be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content. A lot of our video notifications have not been getting out to people. This is how we grow, and we appreciate you greatly spending the time here on the channel. Here's the thing. We're going to bookend this really quick and just say that EA has made a lot of games for a lot of years, but a lot of them have actually been pretty good too. I know that they're the butt end of a joke now when it comes to memeing on microtransactions, and I'm right there with you. But Sims 1 through 3, SimCity, the Peggle series, Plants vs. Zombies, all of those old classic Need for Speed games, Most Wanted, Carbon, even some newer ones like Hot Pursuit, the Dead Space games, earlier Battlefields, even games that they published like the 007 games, or the kind of bad movie tie-ins to Harry Potter. Look, I'm just saying they have developed a lot of stuff that's more, like, I guess, focused on one player or not being a microtransaction milk fest. However, in recent years, they've become more and more focused on those microtransactions, as everyone knows, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. Jill, can you explain to them what EA Play is, sort of just briefly?
It's kind of like a service, kind of like Game Pass, where you can get a game for basically free, but you pay every month, like $5 ish in order to play those games, and then you download it and you play it for funsies, and it's got things on it like Peggle, and I think they have the Sims 4 on it, and they don't have any of the older live service games that they would have, like Madden '08 or something, because those games are kind of dead, and they're trying to push longevity with that.
It's interesting to note too, like with Madden, I love Madden '07 and '08. Those are actually really fun games. There was multiplayer stuff, but it started getting pushed into microtransaction territory a little after that, is worth noting. So like kind of approaching after 2010, it was getting more and more kind of in that direction. Before that, it was actually pretty focused on playing the game by yourself or with some friends, and that was it. As these sports games became more lucrative and video games became more mainstream, it was easier and easier to push those microtransaction modes. And like you said, I think it's worth mentioning, so Madden '08, even though that's not really a microtransaction game, it's not on here. Despite its longevity, you could still go back and play it. There are roster changes, obviously. It's been over 10 years. But the thing with that game was those early Maddens, you could pick them up years later and play them, and they didn't lose much in terms of the game itself. More recent sports games for the last 5, 7, almost 10 years have been focused on live service, microtransactions. And it's interesting how none of the old sports games are really on EA Play. EA Play is sort of being curated as a bit of a Netflix for EA to sell a monthly subscription, like all of these companies are going towards. And it's mainly either the newest live service games, the last 2 years-ish, or single-player games that have longevity. Now, I personally believe the reason the sports games that had longevity aren't on there is because they'd make the new ones look like shit. So, like, here's the thing. If I start pushing Sims 2, and you're like, wow, it had all these features when it was complete, but Sims 4 launched without these. All of a sudden, Sims 4 looks worse, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm not going to try and push Sims 2 to you if I'm EA. I'm going to try and push Sims 4.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think, too, you can talk about as well, because you were a big Sims fan. And I think that series is almost the perfect example of what EA is now.
The thing with The Sims is, back in the beginning, in like Sims 1, 2 era, they still had expansion packs, which are kind of like, you know, just an extra disc that you buy. It's kind of like a microtransaction, but back in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
But those expansion packs had a lot more to them. They had a lot of game-changing elements, and they had a lot of items. The whole game about The Sims, if you live under a rock, it's like creating your own little characters that you play with, and you make a family, and you just have like a life simulator with them. That's sort of it. And you'd think that might be boring, but there's a lot of game elements in a lot of those first 3 games that make the game really interesting and fun. But the issue with The Sims 4 is it took out a lot of those game elements at launch. You didn't have pools, you didn't have toddlers, and now that's kind of stuff that's under the rug now, because they put in toddlers and pools for free because people moaned about it.
Yeah, people were very upset, and rightfully so. I think it's, you know, what you're saying too is they've been pulling these features out of their most recent games.
What I was going to say is, what they were trying to do with toddlers in particular is they were trying to take out a key feature and then put it in as a pack that didn't have a whole lot in it except for that one thing that people would buy, because they wanted to make another extra cash money, because they knew I just shouldn't have said cash money.
No, it's cool. We're all cash money around here.
But anyway, what they're trying...
Our audience is cash money.
They're trying to capitalize off of all of the people who will buy anything that The Sims puts out. Because there is a lot of fans of The Sims who will buy every single $70 pack that they put out, even if it's got 5 items in it.
I think a lot of people don't realize how big The Sims is. This game has been growing for years. They even announced in an earnings report that Sims 4 is still growing. Like, the player base is getting bigger, not falling off. Sims fans are very dedicated. And that's the thing with that. Now, you might not be. You know, you at home watching, you might be a Battlefield player. And that's it. That's all you're interested in from EA, or Madden's awesome. I get that, but that doesn't take away the fact that that base is growing and growing. And as these games have grown, Sims included, it's interesting how more and more features have kind of been yanked out and then put back in later titles, either for more money or to tout a new feature. Look back at Madden. Look at training camps. Look at what you could do on your own with workout schedules. Look at Madden 07 especially. It's crazy how all this stuff is just stripped from the game now. The single player of these games becomes more and more barren.
And back with the things like Sims 2 and 3, a lot of their expansion packs were based off of creativity and adding to the game, not just making money off of it, but like coming up with new, fresh ideas. And The Sims 4 kind of just copies old expansion packs and then puts those things into The Sims 4 that you could have had, you know, if you just played The Sims 3.
Right, they're basic features that were introduced over the course of expansions that should have then just become, I guess, expected in vanilla Sims 4.
And it's a lot like where if you were a big Battlefield player, wouldn't you want to buy the expansion pack that has a ton of, I don't know, skins or weapons or new maps? It kind of makes it feel like you're missing something when you play the game when you don't have those things.
Yeah, these really market around the fear of missing out, and also the idea of like, oh, you don't have the complete experience, which is really sad. And I think it's worth mentioning too that there was an earnings report as well. We're not just saying our opinion here. You know, this is our opinion on, we don't believe they've changed, but there's also actual data to back this up, because there was a earnings report released in February of 2021. This was covered on GameSpot. I include the links to our sources down below so that you can check them out yourself, where they talked about how live services or microtransactions continued to be a bright spot for EA. And in the previous quarter, EA had made $951 million from live services, which had compared to $722 million from full game sales that quarter, meaning that quarter they had made actually over $230 million, or about $230 million extra over the amount that they made for just selling games. So it'd be like if I sold you, I don't know how to explain this. Basically, over half the money they made in that quarter was from microtransactions and live services.
Yeah.
And that's the easiest way I can explain it. And they talked about as well that for the trailing 12 months, EA had made $3.951 billion from live services, which was up year over year. And then EA CFO Blake Jorgensen also said that he sees a bright future for live services at the company, saying, "We've built our live services for longevity. FIFA and Madden have both been around for decades. Measured over the last 10 fiscal years, the FIFA franchise has grown at a CAGR of nearly 50% and Madden at nearly 60%. The Sims 4 is on track for its 6th consecutive year of growth." They went on to talk about Apex Legends and some other stuff as well. And it's worth mentioning that they also had this same year in about, I believe, I have to look at the actual date, but it was earlier in 2021. It was in late April. There was a report published on PlayStation Lifestyle and other places as well about a document that had been leaked to CBC News from EA. It had been leaked by an insider who leaked this document that basically showed a presentation about FIFA Ultimate Team. The reason this is important is, again, people are saying that EA has changed in the modern year, right? They're changing back to caring about single-player games because they're starting to care about the player again.
The thing is, though, you'd kind of have to be... I mean, I don't mean to insult anyone, but you'd kind of have to be an idiot as a business person to say, I'd go back to single-player games over the live service things when I'm making almost $1 billion more than I would have just selling full games.
Oh, and people say Rockstar. You know, they'll immediately say, well, Rockstar does that. No, they don't. Rockstar makes so much more money off GTA Online than 5, and it is a problem. Like, you look at how that game is designed, the entire economy of GTA Online is designed around selling you shark cards to buy things. You're not going to grind all that crap.
No.
Like, you might, but no one else is going to. So the thing is, it's like, well, I really want that car. It would take me like a month to save up for it, or $20, you know, that kind of thing. They push that, and EA actually had said in this, it's worth mentioning in that presentation too, to back this up, that it's funny because they basically said that the roads led to FUT for FIFA, which is FIFA Ultimate Team. If you don't know much about sports games, that is the mode of FIFA where they try to get you to buy players. They try and get you to spend money on what is essentially, in my opinion...
It's the casino.
It's basically gambling. I truly believe that it is. It's like loot boxes. It's just a random chance. You're doing a slot machine in your game, and you're trying to get players. And these fans of soccer or football, they are so into their sport. They love it, you know? And it's hard because... Actually, in their defense, there's not a lot of competition. EA has like sort of a foothold on soccer and American football, really hard for making good games. And sports games, there used to be different places you could play them, but now it's mainly one or two, like EA or 2K. And the thing with FIFA Ultimate Team is that they had basically put it as the cornerstone of FIFA and said that they wanted to drive excitement and funnel players towards FIFA Ultimate Team from other modes. Basically, the other modes in the game, they still want to push people in 2021 on purpose, according to this, away from modes they designed. Single player, things like that, messing around by yourself.
Because they want you to buy things.
They want you to spend more money, and why wouldn't they? You know, that's the thing, is like, if they made basically $4 billion from live services in a period of time, or they made $722 million from full game sales, but $951 million from live services, what is their actual incentive to push back into single player except to create cannon fodder to sustain EA play?
Not only that, but they kind of came up with an ingenious way to get underage kids hooked onto gambling.
Oh, this is all our opinion, allegedly. It's worth mentioning. We're not slandering EA here.
The thing is, if I was a 12-year-old girl or boy who just loved sports so much and I memorized my parents' credit card, what do you think I'd be doing all day?
Or you're, you know, like, again, someone who just loves these sports and you convince mom or dad to buy that. Or I had a friend in high school who... he had a job and he was like so addicted to playing these sports games. Like, I love video games. This guy was just head over heels for NHL. And what he was doing was he was spending half of his paycheck every time, sometimes his full paycheck, on basically their version of Ultimate Team. He was just blowing money on 1 year of gambling. And guess what? Most of it doesn't carry over year to year. So it's basically like getting you addicted in a way. This is our opinion, because they keep saying it's not gambling. I really think it is.
I mean, when you have an addictive personality, it's pretty much having like a gambling addiction when you're doing things like that. It's like when you go to the casino and you get addicted to just playing those slot machines and getting, you know, that rush when you get something really awesome.
And people don't talk about how those slot machines, by the way, they're a lot like video games. They are designed to trigger dopamine in your brain. People don't know about this, but a lot of casinos will pump excess oxygen into the casino to make you feel a little bit high and happier while you're there, so you don't want to leave. Sometimes casinos are harder to find the way out than they are to get in, where it's like easier marked to get in and harder marked to get out, so that you get distracted on your way out and maybe play another game.
They made that accurately in GTA 5.
Well, they do that.
I can never find the exit.
Exactly. They do that all the time, though, in games. Like, video games in general are designed a lot of times in a way to, like, trigger your dopamine, make you feel good for accomplishing something. And, you know, that's okay. But when it's also intermixed with this psychological engineering to push you to buy more things, that's where it becomes really kind of skeezy and, like, crummy, especially when I think a lot of these companies, in my opinion, know that they are taking advantage of people who have addiction problems as well.
I mean, why would you spend all your money on alcohol when you can get the rarest card ever in, like, I don't know, Madden or whatever?
It might sound lame, but to a lot of these people, it's very important. And I know that these companies know it is. So why did we talk about FIFA and all these things? It's because this is still a focus in 2021. These things we talked about, these earnings reports, the leaked document talking about how FIFA Ultimate Team is like a cornerstone and how much money they make on microtransactions. This is 2021 information. This is not from 5 years ago. So when people...
It's from like 5 months ago.
Right. When people are telling me, hey, I think EA is really rounding a corner, like, and changing... and I even have friends who believe that, who I'm not insulting by this. I have a really hard time believing that because of things that they personally have said and designed their company's products to do, admittedly by them.
And just thinking of them as a business standpoint, EA is, at the end of the day, a really big business who mostly cares about making money, like most businesses do. And what they're trying to do, pretty much, the whole summary of this video, is they're trying to pad out EA Play so you buy their subscription, which is just another microtransaction. That's
what I think. I think that it will be... I truly think that going forward, what we will see from EA is this. And I could be wrong, and I'd love for them to prove me wrong. I think we will see a continual focus on those sports games year after year because they print money. They make them all their money. They could stop making everything and just make FIFA and the company would be fine.
Or they could probably stop making everything and just make Sims and they'd probably still be fine. I don't know how much money Sims makes, but it seems like it's really, really popular because there's so many people who just buy those $60 packs every single time they come out.
Right, and that's the thing is like people don't think about how each one of their properties has this huge player base. Apex, all these other things.
It's like a cult following for a lot of them.
And that's what I'm getting at is like they have so much built into their company from live services that if certain franchises go away, Need for Speed disappears, something like that, it's not a big deal.
No.
It's not a big deal to them. Why do you think that as soon as Dead Space 3 did bad, which by the way was due to EA interference, they pushed the developers to include co-op, they pushed the developers to include features that didn't matter, they pushed the developers to include these weird crafting systems that made overpowered weapons where you just kill, you basically just wipe out enemies in like a shot, right? This was all problems with the game, partially due to interference from EA. And then when it failed, they basically forced the company that was making it to just die. You know, it was just like, we're done with Dead Space.
And now the only reason they're remaking the first one is so they can put it on EA Play and make more money.
That's what I really think. I think it'll be a big push of like a ton of money up front for sales because this is a beloved classic horror game,
Mm-hmm.
especially with sci-fi and the thirst for new Alien content since, Disney bought Alien and Alien looks like it's going a weird direction. All these perfect storms coming together, I think, is why they're making this game. I would not be surprised if we see more single-player games from them to pad EA Play.
And if we get lucky, if Dead Space, the remake, does well, we might get another Dead Space game. Who knows? But that's only if, they deem us good enough and good little boys and girls.
And that's the thing, is that at the end of the day, if you want any of this to change, it's not about the company, really. It's about where you spend your money. And the sad truth is, there's so many people on Earth that you and me, whoever's watching this, you and me, not buying FIFA Ultimate Team packs or not buying a game that they make that's focused on microtransactions, sometimes it feels like it really doesn't matter.
But 100 people, it matters.
Right. If you can get everyone to, sure. But there's such a base in, especially Europe that will always buy FIFA that it feels like it's a fool's errand to even try. And that's what sucks about this. So my goal in the end of this is not to say it's all hopeless. I think that the best that players can do when it comes to EA is support the good things they make. Like for me, for example, I plan to buy the Dead Space remake at launch because I love Dead Space. I would love to see more of it. And I spend time on some EA games that I really like on single player modes. Or if you really want to play sports modes, maybe kind of think about, is it worth your money to spend it on those things you won't have next year? I don't know.
Maybe
it's up to you.
Maybe you could just play the single player mode. And also, you know what? You guys should buy Peggle. Not to advertise Peggle, but I've been loving it recently.
Well, that's the thing is, if you like EA, you should check out EA Play. Because, they
have a lot of really good games on there.
It is interesting. You can at least look up a list of what they have because they do have a lot of great stuff on it. But I think that once you start looking into it, it becomes very obvious that the reason for them going back to single player is to push other facets of the company that actually aren't focused on that.
Anyway, we should probably wrap up this video.
We had too much to say. We had too much to say.
I know.
It's always too much.
Anyway, subscribe to our Patreon.
Support us on Degenerate J Play.
Yeah.
It's our streaming service. No, be sure to check out everything in the comments down below. I appreciate you guys very, very much.
You mean the description?
Oh, yeah, in the description. Don't read the comments. No, I'm just kidding. Do read the comments. But in the description below, we have a couple of things. We will have the link to our secondary channel, Degenerate Plays, where we're playing through a bunch of different games. We will actually soon, in the coming weeks, start playing Dead Space.
The original, yay!
Yeah, Jill and I plan to play through at least 1 and 2, but we'll probably play 3 as well.
We also played through the new Space Jam game, if you're a fan of...
Are you trying to turn them away from my channel?
Well, I know there's a lot of people who really like LeBron James and China.
China.
And yeah. they can watch that Let's Play if they deem us worthy.
There's a lot of things down there, including social medias and a thriving Discord of awesome people down there. So be sure to check that out. Leave a like if you enjoyed this. Subscribe for more content. I appreciate you very much. And last but not least, I do actually want to hear what you think. Do you think EA has changed? Do you think that any of these companies are changing? Or do you think it's a temporary fix, like maybe even something like Ubisoft looks like, where, it comes back with Origins and then Odyssey comes out and it's pushing that envelope again that people were mad about? I want to know what you guys think down there.
I think it might be time to make another video about the 5 companies you think are going downhill.
That's actually true. But we'll see you in the next one. Have a fantastic day. And as always, everyone, stay shway.